All right, so let's say our problem is find the slope of the line. Find the slope of the line through the points. And I'm going to give you 2 points. The first point is -5, 2. And the second point is 1, 3. So remember, points are always a coordinate pair, right? So this is my point 1. This is my point 2. Okay, what helps me, now remember, it always also helps us to write down this equation of the slope. Oops, and it's m, which is our slope. Oops, let me erase that. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I would recommend writing that multiple times. Every time you do a problem, write it down so it'll help you remember. Okay, so let's label I have to figure out what my x1 and y1s are and x2 and y2s, right? So since this one was my first point, I'm just going to help myself remember it's always an x and a y, right? So the first is an x1, second is y1, and then this point is x2 and y2. So now all I'm going to do is start plugging in these values. Okay, so y2 is 3, right? Actually, what also helps is, remember when I told you that you can put parentheses? Let's just write it so that we can, so we have a y2, right, minus a y1 all over x2 minus an x1, right? So our y2 is 3, our y1 is 2, my x2 is 1, right? My x1 is -5. So now if I simplify this, I have 3 minus 2 gives me 1. And 1 minus -5 gives me a +6. Okay, so if you remember again, this 1 is my change in y, and the 6 is my change in x. Okay, so let's see what this actually means. So what we were trying to do is we were finding the slope of a line, right? And our 2 points were, remember our 2 points were -5, 2. That was our first point. And our second point was 1, 3, right? So I have my x and my y. So if I had -1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on my x, then up by 2, that was my first point. My second point was 1, x was 1, and then I went 1, 2, 3 up here. So this was actually my line that I was plotting. And what we found with our slope is that I changed in the y direction to go from point A, say, to point B. What did I do? I had to go up, right, 1, and then I went across, right, I went over, so I went to the right 6. So that's the definition of my slope. Now, as long as you're consistent, you can interchange your 2 points. So I could have actually used, we could also use our slope equals y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. Okay, we would have gotten the same answer. As long as we're consistent, that our y's are on top, our first point minus our second point, first point minus second point. So I have x1, x1, y1 here. So I have x1, y1, x2, y2. So remember my slope, something minus something else, right? x1 minus x2. So if I put y1 here first, my y1 was 2, my y2 is 3, and then my x1 is negative 5, and my x2 is 1. So then I would get 2 minus 3, which is negative 1, and on the bottom I would get negative 6, but a negative divided by a negative is positive, and I get the same slope. Okay, let's do one more example. Here, let's find the slope of a line. Find the slope of the line through these points. I'm going to have 0, negative 8, and negative 2, negative 2, negative 2. Okay, so remember, let's write down our slope equation again. It's m equals y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Okay, so let's label our x's and our y's. So here I'm going to go to my first point. I'm going to call that x1, y1. And then over on my second point, I'm going to call that x2, y2. So let's go ahead and plug in what we have. So remember, this is my y2, this is my y1, this is my x2, this is my x1. So y2 is negative 2, y1 is negative 8, x2 is negative 2, x1 is 0. And the reason I wrote out my parentheses first is just so that I remember to keep my negative signs, so I don't accidentally drop a negative sign. It helps me keep track of everything I need to with my points. So now negative 2 minus a negative 8, right, is the same as negative 2 plus 8. Negative 2 minus 0 is just a negative 2. Right? So I get a 6 over negative 2, which equals negative 3. Okay, so now I know that my slope, my m, equals negative 3. So how do I figure out what my change in y over change in x is? Well, remember when I have a whole number, right? So my slope is negative 3. If I have a whole number, I can always say it's over 1. Right? So my change in y is negative 3, which means I go down 3. And my change in x is 1.